And good evening once again, everybody. Welcome to another Hoops HD Under the Radar podcast, your source for everything you need to know about all of the schools that are not in major conferences. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Joining me, as always, the NCAA puppet master himself, David Griggs. David, how are you tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Watching the team of the people, we got a big announcement. They got it down to 2. They're playing as we're recording this. They're trying to remain undefeated and get a couple of wins that will get the attention of the NCAA selection committee. We think at home against Central Michigan, and then this weekend at Louisville.
Yeah, and we'll get to that one second, but before we do that, this is the Under the Radar podcast, and we like to every week just kind of review with everybody what under the radar means. There are 6 power conferences out there: ACC, Big East, Big 10, Big 12, Pac-12, and the SEC. They are not under the radar.
Right.
Also, we have decided that a few other multi-bid conferences are not under the radar: the Atlantic 10, the American, and for some reason the Mountain West, although we have been kind of debating whether that should remain in effect or not. But we will not be discussing those conferences. We also have decided that any teams that are ranked in the top 25 are not under the radar. That's you, Gonzaga. It used to be Wichita State. Wichita State has dropped out of the top 25 and I guess back under the radar, right, David?
Yeah, I guess so. Or have we? Because we also exempted 2 other teams, Gonzaga and BYU, because we talked about moving that conference all the way up. Opted not to, but we have moved those 2 teams up.
Well, yeah, BYU, but that's because BYU just has special rules across the board, as we know in March also. But they're kind of their own entity, I guess. But yeah, and so no matter how bad you are in one of the major conferences, even you're not under the radar. So lousy teams like Rutgers, St. John's, or Indiana will not be discussed tonight either. My little Indiana shot, but
right.
David, let's talk a little breaking news here about the team of the people this season, the Grand Canyon Antelopes. They've been adopted here by Hoops HD as our team and everybody's team.
Everybody's team. They are in a very unique situation. That's why we've adopted them. It's an incredible story. They are a transitional team, and they are essentially. They're one of the best teams in their conference. We think they are the best teams in their conference, and that's one of the reasons we picked them. Here they are as a transitional team, poised to finish in first place, but currently ineligible for the NCAA tournament, for the conference tournament, because of a stupid rule that makes no sense. It takes 4 years to complete the transitional process in order for you to be eligible for the NCAA tournament. So they are going to need a waiver to get in and look at what we have for you. They're actually playing right now. They're undefeated on the season. They're up 3 right now. The crowd is going ballistic. They're drawing bigger crowds than I would say about 250, and that's conservative, Div 1 teams right now. Wouldn't you say, Chad? In the month of November.
I mean, I've seen a lot of Grand Canyon games after the last couple of years since they started their transition up. I don't know that I've seen a game yet that has not been sold out, including exhibition games. I mean, these fans here in Arizona are going nuts for this team. They just have a great atmosphere at these games. Every game is now televised there locally in Arizona and streamed nationally. They're up 3 points on a pretty decent Central Michigan team.
Yeah,
a little maybe underperforming so far, but still a Central Michigan team that we like this season.
Yeah, and this is a Central Michigan team that we thought was going to win the MAC. Now, like you said, they've kind of underperformed so far, but it's still a really strong team. And if this is to get acclimated, I declare Grand Canyon at this point to be acclimated.
Right. And we have a hashtag out there for you people on Twitter, hashtag Lopes Waiver.
Yes, here we go. I believe this is it here. And again, this is what's going on here. Like Lopes Waiver, we need an appeal to the NCAA, and we would like – one of the things we're going to do now is – like you can just tweet this at the NCAA, hashtag Lopes Waiver at NCAA. We have this picture for you here. It's Howard Beale. We want you to tweet this picture. It's I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You got to be furious what they're doing to the Lopes. This is the best team. It's an acclimated crowd. They're having a great year. And again, so tweet this at the NCAA. That you're mad as hell and you're not going to take it anymore, hashtag Lopes Waiver. And there's the phone number. You can call the NCAA. You can actually call them. And when they answer the phone, Tell them, say that you are mad as hell and that you're not going to take this anymore and that they need to let the Lopes play.
NCAA, we're mad as hell. We're not taking it anymore. 317-917-6222.
Yes.
Give them a call. If they give you any type of problems, give David Griggs a call. He'll take care of it for you.
And we've already taken the Twitter. I'll see if we can get that up here in a second. But, like, yeah, there it is. Like, there's our Twitter. Yeah, it'll be on the screen. Yeah, there's the Twitter handle, David G. Puppet, or search tag Lopes Waiver. This picture is already out there. All you have to do is retweet it at the NCAA.
Yeah, if you can't find it, just do a search on Twitter for hashtag Lopes Waiver. You will see it. It will come right on up. Just keep retweeting it. Retweet it to your friends. But most importantly, we're going to slam the NCAA with this until they listen.
Yeah, we are Twitter bombing. This is what we're doing this week, and next week we'll be doing something else. But we are not letting this go. The Lopes are the team of the people, and they belong in the NCAA tournament. And this week we're Twitter bombing them with pictures of Howard Beale.
I'm going to take when they belong. They deserve to have a shot at the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
I mean, we're not. If they. I don't think it'll happen, but if they lose the rest of their games the rest of the season, no. I'm not going to make this argument, but they deserve a shot. The WAC should let them play in the WAC tournament, and if they win the WAC tournament, they should be in the big dance. And that's it, plain and simple.
You actually have. I mean, we are ready to file a waiver, an appeal, and tell us because you actually outlined an excellent basis, and it was using the NCAA's own mission statements against them, essentially.
Exactly. The NCAA mission statement talks about fairness and equity, and striving for the best in athletic competition. Well, these kids here at Grand Canyon are not given that chance.
No.
The seniors will not have the chance at all. The juniors are not going to have a chance because they're not eligible next year either.
Right.
It's ridiculous, and it's unfair to these kids that you have to go 4 years. I can understand maybe a single transitional year. It may make a little bit of a sense. A year where you don't have to play a full D1 schedule. You play half a D1 schedule, half a D2 schedule. But 4 years of not being able to compete for the reason you're playing the game, to try to win a championship, it's ridiculous.
It is. And there it is. Again, do it now. And what I would like you to do, you're watching this on your phone or on your computer. You can just hit pause. It should be right down below. And again, get on Twitter right now, tweet at the NCAA, tweet this picture at them, hashtag Lopes Waiver, and tell them that you're mad as hell and that you're not going to take it anymore. And then call them and tell them that as well. All right.
David, we do want to move on to some other topics tonight, although we probably could do about another hour about the Lopes. We have a few other teams we want to talk about, about 300 or so of them. So,
yeah, very busy week last week, and lots to get to.
Yeah. What we're going to do is go through the 23 under-the-radar conferences. We normally take them in alphabetical order. We're going to do that again tonight, but we normally like to start with one conference that we focus on a little bit more than the rest, and then go back and take the rest. And I would like to actually start tonight, David, over in the Metro Atlantic.
Oh, yeah.
Where over the past week, you have to have been living under a rock to not have heard what's been going on with these Monmouth Hawks and their bench. And maybe in a very weird twist, we need to start this week by talking about 4 players. Their names are Daniel and Louis Polari. Those two are cousins. Tyler Robinson and Greg Nowak. These 4 players have played, I think, about 3.5 minutes total the entire season, and yet are the most famous part of the Monmouth team at the moment.
They are. I was reading today, a lot of people, I mean, the reaction has been mostly positive. People have loved it. Some were saying that, what the hell, what a joke, can't these people be serious? I actually think these antics are really working for Monmouth. I really do. I don't want to go so far to say it's the reason they're winning, but we watched them out at UCLA. I think it helped keep them loose. I definitely think it helped keep them loose in the Advocare Invitational down in Orlando. And you have to keep in mind, prior to last year, they had 8 losing seasons in a row. This program had no identity. It had of any kind, and it had no level of relevance. And they were noticeably stronger last year. Actually, you kind of noticed it more than I did. I wasn't even paying attention to them at all. I was looking at Manhattan and Iona. You noticed that they finished strong, and they went to Iona, and I remember this game. Now, this was before the antics on the bench started, but they played a really solid game, either in late February or early March. And this year, they've gone from not winning and not being relevant to not just winning, but beating recognizable programs at UCLA, or USC on a neutral court, Notre Dame, a missed last-second shot against a very good Dayton team. Has this team ever in its history played better?
They have been playing as well this year as in quite some time. They have been in the NCAA tournament before, but you've got to go back to 06 was one of four times that they were in the NCAA tournament. I believe they won a first four game in 06 for their only NCAA tournament victory. They haven't won a conference championship since that 06 year as well. They were in the Northeast Conference at the time. They were in a lower level conference. They are now in the Metro Atlantic, which is a stronger conference. But just what they've been doing, King Rice, the former North Carolina guard, has been doing a great job coaching there.
Fantastic job.
I got a chance to go up to their home game against Niagara last year. Maybe Niagara was pretty awful. And they've got one non-conference home game this entire season before the conference play starts. It's against Wagner coming up on December 13th. I will be there as well. Anybody that's going to be out there, come and see me. Section J, stop on by. I'll be there. We'll be cheering on the Monmouth Hawks and cheering on the Hawks Nest there on the bench.
Yeah, and this is it's been so much fun. They've been winning. They've been having a blast, and it's been a blast watching them have a blast. And on top of that, the antics are great, but how about what they've done? I mean, they have won 3 games of note all away from home. There were teams in the NCAA tournament inside the bubble last year that didn't do that. This team has a chance.
I was talking to somebody today that knows nothing about college basketball, knows a little bit about colleges, and I said, what would you think if I told you there was a team out there that beat the following three schools in the same season, all away from home: USC, UCLA, and Notre Dame? The response was, wow, that's got to be a really good team.
Right.
When you think about it, just think about those name brands. I mean, USC, the jury's still on them, but Notre Dame was a nationally ranked team. And UCLA, well, David, as we record this right now, is 5.5 minutes away from knocking off Kentucky.
Yes. And I don't know. They do go to Georgetown. I think they have another chance at a scalp. If they can win at Iona or at Manhattan or even at Canisius, some of these teams that play really strong at home, I think they'll get a little credit, albeit not a lot. But the opportunity for them is there to land inside the bubble. It really is. They've played their way into a great situation. And I hope it holds up because, wow, what a story.
Right. I mean, there are some tough teams here. You mentioned Iona. I still think the Siena team is a pretty good team, even though I think they had a tough loss this week. They lost to Cornell, I believe, although it was on the road. But I do still think there's going to be competition here in the Metro Atlantic, but they can go. It's a 20-game regular season in the Metro Atlantic. I think clearly 18-2, but I think even a 16-4 with no bad losses in the rest of their non-conference schedule. It's worth. They're going to get a long look. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. And the reason we've spent so much time on them and Grand Canyon is because these are 2 really big stories. So.
But let's move on from the Metro Atlantic and let's go back to the beginning here. We're going to start with the America East, kind of run through all the conferences. David, at this point, we've spoken about the fact that it looked like it was going to be an Albany-Stony Brook battle, and nothing so far has changed my mind on that.
Not at all. New Hampshire not sucking is somewhat noteworthy, but they didn't entirely suck last year either. But yeah, I mean, it's still looking like Albany and Stony Brook.
And Atlantic Sun, we thought it was going to be a 2-team battle, and I still think it's going to be the same 2 teams at this point also, North Florida and NJIT.
Yeah, North Florida, it's defense is not their strong suit.
This game last night, you saw some of that one.
Right. They've been playing a good out of conference schedule. They did get the big win at Illinois. I actually watched the game against Louisville and was actually very impressed with how prepared they were. Now, they have no post play at all, and once Louisville realized that they could just hammer it into the paint, it was game over. But they were actually, I think, ahead for most of the first half. But again, I think the ship might have sailed for North Florida to land inside the bubble. I mean, they do go to Dayton. The opportunities are still there, but realistically, can they do it? I don't think they can. But I do think that once they get into the ASUN play, there's nobody other than NJIT that can really stay with them.
Yeah, and when you talk about the lack of defense, we're talking about last night, they lost to LSU 119 to 108. Ben Simmons scoring 43 points and just going off on them. But it was just this game was in the 70s with 15 minutes left, and I was just like, my jaw dropped when I saw the score, quite honestly. But
yeah.
Let's move on to the Big Sky Conference. Montana still has not done what we thought they would do, and they struggled last year as well. Is there? We are in the post Wayne Tinkle era here in Montana, and maybe there's just not as good, David.
It's looking that way. Sacramento State's still one of the stories in this conference. I believe it was Arizona State they beat.
Yes.
And you know. Yeah, I think that it might be. Yeah, I think that you just nailed it. Wayne Tinkle was a huge part of that program. I think he's doing really well. It's at Wazoo is where he's at now, right? No, Oregon State.
He's at Oregon State.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, good thing this is under the radar. But yeah, and that's a good question. I never really thought of it before, but I think that is why Montana hasn't been the way we're used to seeing them.
The other team, obviously, to note in the Big Sky is Weber State, who did win the Gulf Coast Showcase last week, beating Central Michigan Drake, and Murray State is now 5-2.
Yes.
And they are actually playing BYU coming up this weekend, so that's a good test for them.
It really is. Big Utah. Is that a mythical conference? Does that have a name? Weber, BYU, Utah State?
It's the Utah Conference. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a name for it now.
Yeah, and just a quick note here. You mentioned Montana not being what they thought they would be. Idaho State, everything I thought they would be.
Idaho State off to a 2-3 start, but currently at 331 in the Ken Palms, as both their wins were non-D1s. Let's slide on down to the Big South, where I don't know if you had a chance to see it or not tonight, David, but Radford actually opened their Big South season tonight, hosting Liberty. Beat them by 4 points and should have lost the game.
Yeah, it was at Liberty, wasn't it?
No, it was at Radford.
Oh, it was. I was actually watching a little of it before the game of the day. We'll get to that here in a minute, but that just goes to show you how little attention I was paying to it. I thought Liberty was the home team. Yeah,
Radford did not show me anything at all tonight. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, and why are they opening early? And I guess we should have done some research, or unless you know the answer. It was very common to see this format during the Bracket Buster because they needed to free up that week as a Bracket Buster participant, and it gave a chance to have a conference game at home before the students really went home for Christmas. Why is it that we sort of, and they're not the only league that's doing it. The Sun Belt opened. I think the Metro Atlantic has played some games.
The Sun Belt and the Metro Atlantic both play 20-game seasons, which is why they want to open with get a couple games away in before the students go away. The best understanding I have with the Big South is that given that it is one of the very first conferences to finish up regular season play, they have their conference tournament championship game in that first weekend of championship week. You really have one less week of regular season play, and that may be why they're squeezing these games in here, because they do get right into the heart of regular season play come January 1st. So it could be the same theory here, just with one less week of regular season play.
Right, and over Christmas break, it isn't anything like Feast Week, what we saw last week, but it is a chance to play away from home a little more. And when you are at home, you're not in front of your students. It's a little bit different over Christmas.
All right. In terms of the Big South itself, I think High Point is going to be the team to beat here with John Brown. They were my preseason pick. While Radford had the wins at Georgetown and at Penn State, I'm almost ready to write them off, even though they won the game tonight. I'll put it that way.
Right. Yeah, Liberty, not good. Winthrop off to a good start. Pat Kelsey doing very well there. How much longer is he going to be there?
That's a good question. And Winthrop seems to be one of those spawning beds for coaches. So
yeah, and they were really bad when he took them over. I mean, it was he didn't immediately follow Greg Marshall, and
right.
There was some rebuilding that needed to take place.
David, over in the Big West, UC Irvine is still the team that I'm looking at with Mamadou Enja. I know they have 2 losses. We have a couple of 1-loss teams. Hawaii, who is undefeated outside of the continental United States, but winless inside the continental United States.
Right.
And the next 2 games are home games against Hawaii Hilo and Hawaii Pacific.
Yes, and the Big West Conference, I don't know if you're aware of this or not. If you are, stop me. It mandates that Hawaii play half their conference games in the mainland.
Yes, that I believe you are absolutely correct. So they are going to have to make 4 or 5 trips off of the island to get their those conference games in. It is a conference rule. Otherwise, they might go undefeated on the season.
Yeah, Irvine, they were kind of disappointing in their tournament, and I say disappointing in the context of I thought this was a team that could get on or in the bubble. I don't think that anymore, but I agree with you. I still think they're the best team in this conference. Long Beach actually got a home game against. I mean, they're road warriors and to a crazy level. Played pretty well against San Diego State the other night, I thought, but I don't like them as much as Irvine.
I want to bring up another team we haven't discussed in quite a while here, and I'm not bringing them up for any good reason. Cal State Northridge out to a lousy 2-5 start in Reggie Theus's 3rd year here. What's wrong with this? Why isn't he able to build anything here? He lost 24 games last year, and they look like they're going to be pretty lousy again this year.
Yeah, I was impressed with what Reggie Theus did at New Mexico State. They were awful. I mean, putrid when he got there. I think they had only won 2 or 3 games the year before. He was the I don't want to I don't know if he was the associate head coach at Louisville, but he was on the staff. Really turned New Mexico State around in a matter of 2 or 3 years. Yeah. Went to coach in the NBA, didn't work out. I think he coached the Kings. I could be. It's a little surprising that he hasn't been able to get it going, even by Big West standards. They've been to an NCAA tournament, but it was very, very misleading. It followed a pitiful year where they had one good weekend. Fortunately, it was the conference tournament weekend.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't see this year from. I don't think Bridges Theus didn't actually make a conference at the NCAA tournament, did he?
No, okay. They got to the final.
He made it to the finals that year.
Yeah.
It was the year that Cal Poly won out of like the 8th seed, and he made it, and he played them as the 7th seed or something ridiculous. But but let's move on beyond the Big West over to the Colonial conference that I think we're going to be talking a lot about this season between what Northeastern, Hofstra, Bill and Mary especially so far, those 3 teams, but even beyond them, James Madison, Delaware, College of Charleston beat LSU. I mean,
this is the kind of conference that I think enough teams are putting enough meat. We had this debate before the season started. I think that you have just enough meat to get 1 or 2 teams, but probably at least one inside the bubble, the first place finisher. I really like this William and Mary team. I realize James Madison has had issues with not being at full strength, but they've still been somewhat disappointing. They played tonight. What did they do tonight? Do you have that right in front of you by chance?
I'm sorry. Tonight they did beat Western Michigan by 6 at home. Yeah.
Okay, so again, the opportunity was still there. I'll say this. Northeastern was, I think, my preseason under-the-radar top 10 number 1. We're going to get to this week's edition. And everybody kind of laughed, and I was really disappointed with them. They were winning, but they were sweating out some really weak teams, Boston U and things like that. Then they go to Miami, win at Miami, and the whole complexion changes. Now suddenly they're a team with just 1 loss that has a road win at Miami. That's pretty good. On paper, their paper is excellent. I think William and Mary's paper is good. Hofstra's is good enough to where I don't think it would be considered a bad loss if somebody lost at Hofstra. I think this team puts one inside the bubble, Chad.
Yeah.
Or this conference, I'm sorry.
We do have to throw it out there. UNC Wilmington is also 5-0, but has not played anybody of note yet, although they have pretty much blown out everybody they've played at Georgetown this weekend. So, we'll learn a lot. And then at East Carolina, so a couple of bigger schools, although they play a fairly weak non-conference schedule, especially compared to the rest of this conference.
Right.
Conference USA, pair of teams that I'm looking at, and neither one of them is called Old Dominion.
Exactly. This has been a little shocking. You were big on UAB to start the year. I was really big on Old Dominion. In fact, I stand corrected. I think Old Dominion was actually my number one team. Northwestern was. I'll have to go back and look at the podcast. But Old Dominion, incredibly disappointing so far.
As has been UAB, Rod, pretty much also.
Yeah, and UAB hasn't really been any better. Their wins have come against no one of note, as same with Old Dominion. UTEP has gotten out to a 5-1 start. I would have said it would have been easier for me to take them seriously had they won last night at New Mexico State. Nothing against New Mexico State, but if you're a bubble team, you need to win that game at New Mexico State. They did not. I know it's a rivalry. La Tech is the other team I think you're looking at. They have the notable win at Ohio. But how notable is that ultimately end up going?
I'll tell you, they got two notable wins in my book. Not only did they win at Ohio State, but they have a home win over a Texas Arlington team that has picked up a couple nice wins as well.
Yeah.
They did lose a game at Memphis, and they got really destroyed by Memphis, and that's probably the biggest black mark on their record right now. That was just a couple nights ago.
Yeah,
they really don't have another test again until they go to Ole Miss on December 15th.
Yeah, that Memphis game was, I think it was 40-17 or something at one point. It was shockingly unimpressive.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think this is a one bid Conference USA, league at this point, unless somebody just goes on an incredible run. There's one other team I think is worth mentioning, and that's Middle Tennessee. Their losses were at Murray State and a home loss to VCU, but they did take the Great Alaska Shootout Championship, beating Toledo in the finals there. A kind of a team that doesn't really have an awful loss yet, so we'll find out a little more of them. They're going to be hosting Auburn December 12th, hosting Belmont December 17th. Yeah. They also have a game coming up against a South Dakota State team that I really like coming up at the end of December as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Kermit Davis's squad there. Keep an eye on them.
Yeah, like them.
All right. Let's move over to the Horizon League, and this was our under-the-radar game of the night. Involved Horizon League team tonight. Valparaiso coming up with a 4-point home win over Belmont.
Big win. I had been, and we'll get to Belmont here in a little bit. I was big on Belmont when the season started. Really liked their win at Marquette. Marquette went on to just be putrid, so you wonder how good of a win that really was. And then they lost some games that you would expect, at least I was expecting them to win. I know Arizona State's a Power 5 team. I know about the curtain of distraction. I thought Belmont would get them. They didn't. Didn't win at BYU. They lost a couple games where I think they needed one win. But they really hung in there tonight. And it's kind of like, had they played this way against Arizona State, I think they beat them. It's kind of frustrating to see a missed opportunity for a team that doesn't get that many.
Right. But on the other hand, now you look at this Valpo resume. Right now, they're sitting at number 30 in the KenPom ratings. They've got the nice home win over Iona, road win at Rhode Island, a road win at Oregon State, a home win over Belmont.
Yeah.
David, they've got one more major non-conference test coming up, and that's at Belmont December 28th, although they can't overlook Indiana State coming up next week.
No, they can't. They overlooked Ball State, and it didn't sink the ship, but it certainly damaged the bow. They really – and you, again, under the radar, you don't get as many strikes simply because you don't get as many chances at quality wins as the Power Conference or the multi-bid leagues do. It did not sink them, but it was, God, they could have done without that.
Well, but they're really going to need to dominate the Horizon League this year. Normally, you look at the Horizon League, there's a couple teams that are near the top 100 or so, or in the top 100.
Yeah.
This, other than Valpo, I think this is a really weak Horizon League this year.
Right.
The teams that are generally up there, teams like Green Bay or or the like are just Cleveland State are not good this year.
Yeah, and on top of that, they need to. But you know what? If they're a tournament team, they should.
Right.
For the reason you just said, this is not a strong league. A bubble team should be able to dominate this league and dominate it to the tune of 18-0, 17-1. Right. They really should.
But if this team goes 17-1 and wins of their 4 remaining non-conference games, wins 3 out of those 4, I think they're an NCAA tournament team.
I think so too.
Win or lose in the conference tournament, I think they're an NCAA tournament.
Right.
And I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the top 25 as well.
Yeah. Big news from Grand Canyon. The place is going berserk. I think the building is actually shaking right now.
They are up by 3 with about 17 seconds left and at the free line.
Yeah.
But we will give you an update that in just a few seconds here. Over in the Ivy League, David, Princeton's still undefeated at 4-0.
Yes. Not against the best competition, but they are undefeated. We have a big piece of news. I'll let you share that in regards to this conference here in a second.
The big piece of news: Grand Canyon Antelopes final. They remain undefeated, knocking off Central Michigan.
You're ahead of me.
I apologize, David. I just ruined the end of the game for you.
Ruined it. And what's happening in this conference next year, Chad?
Well, let's talk about the Ivy League. It's not official yet. There will be a vote sometime before the end of this month, end of December. We'll have that news. But the Ivy League presidents are once again bringing up the idea of a conference tournament. And at this point in time, all indications are that they are going to be finally voting in favor of the conference tournament. The idea here is more television exposure for the league. There's already a deal in place with Fox Sports 1 for the televising any Ivy League 1-game playoff at the end of this season. I think the idea is to turn that into a regular contract for the championship game every year, maybe get some TV exposure or at least ESPN3 exposure for the rest of the rounds. They haven't decided is it going to be all 8 teams, is it going to be the top 4, top 6? That's stuff that we'll find out, but it looks like we're going to be having a conference tournament in the Ivy League next year. Right.
And was this I mean, I know you mentioned the television, and that certainly is a piece of it. And I can't help but wonder, have some of the playoffs we've seen recently, did that perpetuate it? Because those games actually rated very well, and they were really exciting games, especially last year's.
Right. And I think one of the problems the Ivy League has always had was the idea of, well, we don't want to have the conference tournament because we've got to take all these teams and bring them up to play these games wherever and more time off of school, etc. But I think the idea of maybe a 4-team tournament would be a good one. It'd be just like their Friday, Saturday normal regular season schedule. You play 2 semifinals Friday night as championship Saturday. You do it either I would prefer to do it at the regular season champions home court, or at least at a neutral site of some sort. I think it would be exciting, and it would finally give chances for somebody else to win it. You know, it's been you've got some incredible delays since Yale and Columbia since the 60s, Dartmouth since the 1940s, since they've been in the NCAA tournament. Give them a shot here.
Right. Yale is a team that I like out of this league. Getting back to that, really impressive showing against SMU. I realized Duke opened it up in the second half, but they were right in there, led, I think, at halftime. And then they just what the hell happened after that out at Albany?
There's been some inexplicable stuff. Columbia was a team I liked coming to the season, has also suffered a couple of strange losses at home to Longwood, an overtime loss at Fairfield, after taking Northwestern to overtime, and Northwestern is looking like an NCAA tournament team so far. So
the paper is anyway.
On paper. Well, but yeah, you got Princeton undefeated. We like Yale. We like Columbia. Penn is off to a decent start as well in the Steve Donahue era here. Harvard does not look good, so I think we'll have a new champion this year.
Right.
Metro Atlantic, we already discussed, but let's move over to the Mid-American, where Central Michigan, now 3-4, coming off the loss tonight at Grand Canyon. I think I like what Akron and what Northern Illinois have done so far. And David, let me start with Northern Illinois. When was the last time we discussed Northern Illinois as a tournament contender? I don't remember
it. And again, a lot of it is full. I mean, they've beaten Northridge, who we've already talked about not being good. South Dakota, not good. Wright State has lost all but one of their games. I have never heard it. The name of the school is Eureka. I thought that was trademarked by Disney. Eureka. And then they beat. But the fact that they are not. It doesn't matter. This team was so bad 2 years ago. It doesn't matter who they're beating. It's just that they're beating anyone. I honestly don't think they got what it takes to hold on. But as of now, they're 5-0. But yeah, I like you. I like Akron. I like Akron.
Yeah. I agree with you on the Akron pick here.
And what about Ball State? They did beat Valpo, and they are 5-2. Again, another team that's traditionally off, or that's been pretty bad in recent years, off to a much better than normal start.
They have the one over Valpo, but they lost to a Bradley team and an Eastern Kentucky team, neither of which are that good this year. So they've done nothing away from home. Yeah. They don't really have any other test non-conference either, so they could at least pick up a lot of wins here. But they may be your favorite now in the West Division, at least here in the MAC, with the way that Central Michigan continues to struggle.
Yeah, good grief. 3-4, but one of those is not a Div 1 win. So for all practical purposes, they're just 2-4.
2-4. The MEAC, David, I picked them second coming at preseason. Our buddy John Titel, who's down in Washington, D.C., said he didn't like this team at all this year, but Howard is now 5-2 with a win over William and Mary.
Yeah, they are. Shocking win over William and Mary. And again, I don't think anybody in this conference has a better win. I don't even think it's close.
No, it isn't close. This is that's the best win in the conference. I kind of like this Howard team a little bit. I think that they are going to be that they could be right up there. I still kind of like Hampton as well. It's too early to really tell. Teams really don't separate themselves in a league like this until we get into conference play, because it's going to be a one-bid league no matter what.
Right, yeah.
The Missouri Valley Conference. Do we want to talk a little Wichita State?
Well, yeah. I mean, it is an under-the-radar conference, and
Well, you know what, though? If we're talking about who's going to win the conference, we're not talking Wichita State right now, not the way they're playing.
I'm sorry, this is not under the radar at all. UCLA is sort of storming the court. UCLA. John Wooden has just turned over his career. Anyway, back to the Missouri Valley.
And just a little note here. Monmouth did this year what Kentucky could not do. That's all I've got to say.
Right, yes.
One at UCLA.
Yes.
But back to the Missouri Valley. You've got 3 one-loss teams in Northern Iowa, Evansville, and Southern Illinois. Which of those 3 does not belong?
The Salukis.
Yeah. Southern Illinois, although only 1 loss, it is a kind of a fake record. Their wins have been over Florida A&M, Kent State, Sam Houston State, Oakland, Portland, Southeast Missouri. Their loss was to UTEP. However, Evansville and Northern Iowa have both looked really good.
Yeah, they have. Northern Iowa exceptionally good and really surprising. And this is a pretty young Northern Iowa team. We know how much we liked them last year. I don't want to take anything away from last year, but I'm almost as impressed with the job Ben Jacobson has done with a new roster this year as I was with him finishing as a legit top 25 team last year. Ben Jacobson, fantastic coach that doesn't get near the national credit that he deserves. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm very impressed with what they've done. That Colorado State loss was a little rough, but that was their first game of the year.
Yeah.
When you have a young team loses their first game of the year, you can't really hold it against them. I don't think Colorado State's got anything this season, but they've beaten Stephen F. Austin, who's going to win the Southland most likely. They've beaten North Carolina. They got an interesting road test this weekend at Richmond. They've also got trips to New Mexico and a game against Iowa State. Well, that's maybe asking for too much, but you never know.
And when Van Vliet comes back, it's going to be a completely different story. But Wichita State, the kings of the conference in recent years, has just 1 Div 1 win right now, and it's against a team that also has just 1 Div 1 win right now.
Right. Looking at the RPI, which is meaningless at this time of the season, we know that, but right now Wichita State's RPI is 244. To put that in perspective, teams like Wagner and Morehead State and Austin P have better RPIs than that. But
Right.
uh, over the Northeast Conference, clearly a one bid league. Not much that I think we've really seen from anybody here so far this season, David.
No, just some teams getting paid. LIU, I wasn't, or I guess is it LIU Brooklyn? Is that what
Right.
they like being called? The Blackbirds, only team with a winning record against Div 1 competition, and I don't know. I wasn't expecting much out of them. I St. Francis Brooklyn, their big rivals, just 2-4. I think the ceiling is the 16 line for this conference. Still love this conference once conference play starts because of the rivalry, the atmospheres. But for the out of conference portion of the seasons, no one's really been able to lift the kind of weight to even warrant. Well, I guess they could probably get somebody into the CIT, but not even really the NIT.
Right. The one thing we may be following with the Northeast Conference as the season goes on here is this Central Connecticut State team, 0-6 already, and a real good shot at going over for the entire season. That's how bad they've looked.
Yeah, and I mean, this again might be the centenary.
Might be. There's a few other teams that'll battle them. But over in the Ohio Valley Conference, we already discussed this Belmont team. Murray State has been okay, obviously not what they were last year.
Right.
Morehead State out to a 5-1 start, but I think it's kind of a false 5-1.
Yes, Morehead State did something. Again, they continue the long. It's just they continue to prove the long proven thesis that Jim Cruz is not a good coach.
What they did last night at St. Louis was a dismembering.
Yes.
It was unbelievable. And I'm a little bit interested, though, David, in this Morehead State team coming off of the confidence they gained from that victory, 60-46 at St. Louis, going in this weekend to Indiana.
Indiana's defense is
Indiana defense. Those are complete opposites.
Right. It is the classic leave them open and hope they miss style of defense. You rarely see anybody do it as well as Indiana. I think Morehead will make them sweat. I really do. I don't think they win, but it's going to be worth watching.
Over in the Patriot League, David, we've got two teams that are leading the way right now with only 2 losses each, and they're Army and Navy.
Yeah, I'll love it.
That'd be awesome, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. I don't think they have what it takes, at least not Army, to kind of end up at the top of this league, but it's been fun watching them so far.
You don't think Army does?
What's that?
You don't think Army has what it takes?
Not to win the conference. I still think.
I do. I don't think Navy does, but I think Army could be up there.
You think so? I still like Bucknell. I know they're 2-4. They're still the team, but if Army or Navy, or if one or both of them could get to the CIT, that would be tremendous.
I'm not putting anything past this Army team. I think that they really underperformed last year. They've got most of that team back. I think that I would not be shocked if they finished near the top of this conference. That's all I'm going to put out there.
Okay. No, and okay. I mean, that's a bold prediction, and it's relevant. I can go along with that.
Let's move over to the SoCon. Chattanooga coming off a loss this week at Louisiana Monroe. A little disappointing for a Chattanooga team that played so well so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, they had won at Georgia, albeit I don't know how notable that's going to be. Won at Illinois, went out to Illinois State, got beaten pretty bad. This really was kind of, and Monroe is good by under the radar standards, but we thought, Chattanooga was exceptionally good by under the radar standards. I really was expecting them to win. It kind of does knock them down.
Yeah. Mercer is out to a 7-1 start once again. Team second straight year. I did not think that Bob Hoffman's team would be that good, and here they are winning games again. Their only loss was to Davidson. They do have a decent home win over George Mason. They've got a game at Auburn coming up on December 15th. That's the next big test, I think.
Yeah.
But keep an eye on them. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, and again, Wofford off to they're kind of at the bottom of their talent cycle. Mike Young, still a really good coach, but they're not to the point to where they can just reload yet.
The Southland Conference, it's a one bid league, and then that bid's going to Stephen F. Austin. David, is there any debate with that?
I I've been so disappointed in SFA. It wouldn't shock me if they didn't win the league. I know that they've stomped all over it for the last 2 years. I think people have become way too enamored with a team that, yeah, they win 26, 27 games. I think they've won, what is it, close to 90 games over the last 3 years or whatever it is, but about 75 of them have been against sub 250 teams. I think they do win this league, but I don't think they're special.
I just want to quickly mention Northwestern State. This is a team that I thought was going to be the second or third best team of this conference this year. Off to a 1-6 start. That one win was against Louisiana College. They've lost to LSU Alexandria, an NAIA team already.
Wow.
Gave up 119 points and 117 points in their last two games. It's a really disappointing year so far for Northwestern State.
Oh, absolutely. This whole conference is weak.
Well, I talk about a conference that may not be as weak as the Southland this year. We got 2 4-1 teams, David, over in the SWAC.
Yeah. This is it again. Has Alabama A&M beaten anybody? This is pretty impressive.
Alabama A&M won at Tulane.
Yeah,
they won at Jacksonville State. That's 2 road wins against D1 opponents, which is a rarity for teams out of this conference to pick up.
Right, and you know what? I think I was most impressed with the game that they lost. They went into Murray and almost beat them. That's not easy to do. So yeah,
Southern also has beaten Tulane and won at Mississippi State. That's your other 4-1 team here.
Yeah. So this team has some. Yeah, I mean, some of these teams are stepping up a little bit. Southern, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, not too terrible. I mean, everybody else kind of going out there and getting paid. Grambling, when did Grambling last win a Div 1 game? I realize they've won, I think, 2 this year, but not Div 1 games.
Their Grambling's last win against a Div 1 team, we do have to go back to the 2014 season. They beat Jackson State in the first round of the SWAC tournament. It was the first round, the 8-9 or the 7-10 game of the SWAC tournament in the 2014. So it's been about a year and a half now.
Yeah. Wow, Mississippi Valley State's already played 9 games. I noticed that they've lost them all.
Lost them all though. Over in the Summit League, South Dakota State. I really like this team.
I do as well. I was much bigger on North Dakota State coming into the season. I was one of the, I think, only ones that was, but they really are pretty good. A little bit of a toe stub out at UMKC. But other than that,
yeah. But I mean, they've won at TCU. They've won at Illinois State. They have a home win over Weber State. These are teams that we've kind of discussed in the under the radar. Discussions as being near the top of their conferences. So that's what I like about them. Obviously, we still can't overlook this Western Illinois team. Only 1 loss of the season, and they won at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But they've got a road test coming up coming up next Monday night at Iowa. If you can win at Wisconsin, you should be able to win in Iowa, right, David?
I think so. And I was actually, because I wasn't expecting much out of them at all. They go to win at Wisconsin, and you think it's an anomaly. Then they win against some pretty weak teams, but they stomp all over them. I was a little surprised, not that they lost, but that they got blasted by a Creighton team that isn't very good.
Yeah, so I think the jury's still out on this Western Illinois team. We'll hopefully find out a little bit more of them over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Quickly over to the Sun Belt. We got 2 teams we got to discuss here, and I don't think they're the 2 teams that we plan to discuss in the Sun Belt this season at all.
No.
But Arkansas Little Rock 6-0, Texas Arlington 6-2. Each with multiple impressive victories.
Yeah, Arlington. Okay, so they went to Ohio State and they went to Memphis and then they went to Texas and they led Texas for most of the game. Texas actually had to come back, and even when Texas did come back, Arlington stayed with them. A little bit of controversy in this game. Now, I don't want to make too much of this, but Texas Arlington was not given 3 points for what was clearly a 3-point basket. they pointed it out to the refs, but they did not make the change. I was unaware of this until I heard this because they was not initially ruled a 3-point basket. I guess you can review a 3 to see if it was a 3, but you can't review a 2 to see if it was a 3.
I think we need some clarification on that because I don't believe that is the rule. I think the refs just screwed this one up. Now, but you can't say, well, that would have been one more point and they would have won the game. Because
absolutely.
Texas would have played the end of the game differently.
They would have, and that's important to say. And I don't want to say that, oh, well, it doesn't. There's no way to tell whether it would or would not have, but it was at least worth pointing out.
Right. West Coast Conference, we're obviously not discussing Gonzaga or BYU, but St. Mary's is undefeated, still not having gone on the road, not really been tested. Do you think they have anything, or is it?
No, I think it's fool's gold. Okay, because I think there's about 200 teams. Just getting back, do Little Rock or Arlington, can they land inside the bubble? Do you think?
I think if they
fade out.
Little Rock's undefeated. If they don't lose again until the conference finals, they'll be in the bubble. But they've really got to. I mean, they don't really have a really difficult test at DePaul, at Texas Tech, at Idaho.
Right.
They're going to have to roll through the conference. They're going to have to lose no more than 2 games in conference play, and they're going to have to win maybe all but one of those remaining non-conference games. And Arlington may be a very similar type of scenario, a very similar type of record. Slightly tougher test at UTEP on their schedule, but that's really it non-conference wise.
And this is, you kind of have to stress this. You don't want to mistake brand wins for quality wins. They are not always the same.
Right. And that Ohio State and the Memphis wins may not prove to be much at all in terms of victories.
Right.
The Texas loss may be more impressive than the at the end of the day. But David, one last conference over in the WAC, where we started with the Lopes.
Yes.
We're going to kind of end here in our review of the conferences, and let's hypothetically say that somehow Lopes waiver does not go through. What are you looking at here?
Well, we're looking at a lawsuit, I think. We're just going to storm Indianapolis and take them to court. I still think it's New Mexico State. No one else in this conference has even looked. I think the best thing you could say is that they've looked almost mediocre. New Mexico State with a win against a pretty decent UTEP team the other night. They only have 2 losses. One is against a pretty good New Mexico team. Judging by the rest of the WAC, it smells really, really bad.
I'm still keeping an eye on this UMKC team here. That nice home win over South Dakota State showed me a little bit. They lost at Minnesota. They lost in overtime at Omaha. So one bad loss, one not so bad loss. Just keeping an eye out on UMKC.
Yeah.
Dave, we want to run through we'll do a quick preview of some of the upcoming games, and then we'll run through the top 10 list, try to go through these things quickly here. Coming up tomorrow night, Friday night, a couple games of note. Monmouth taking the Hawks Nest up to Canisius, up to the Buffalo area to take on Canisius. Another game, Northern Illinois undefeated at Missouri. They might have a shot to win that game.
Oh, God, I want that to happen so badly.
Coming up Saturday, an in-state rivalry here. Indiana State's at Butler. I know you like this Trees team heading into the season. I don't know if you still like them this much or not.
Not as much as I did coming into the season. Butler just got a huge win. I mean, they had been in the rankings, but they hadn't really beaten a good team. But I think they beat a very good one yesterday, albeit somewhat crazily. But I don't think thank you for playing. I don't think they have a chance.
The team of the people.
Oh, yes.
Saturday at noon. Chance to it's unfortunately it's not on national TV. It's on ESPN3 game, but But this is their chance to pick up that marquee victory that will really kickstart the Lopes waiver campaign at Louisville.
If they win this, it would clearly be. Again, all kidding aside, we are pulling for them very hard. Louisville, I was most impressed with the game they lost. They went up to Michigan State, who I think is a top 10 team, who probably won't lose but 1 or 2 games at home all year, if that. Led for most of the game, could not hold on, but it did show me that this Louisville team is for real. I think the Lopes are swinging way over their head, but God, Oh, please let it happen. If this happens, the Lopes waiver, Lopes mania, Lopes rise, it's going to take off because the story is just too good. They're selling out their arena. They're the best team in their conference. There's just so much going on here that it will be the team of the people for real if this happens. Just like last year.
NJIT did it last year at Michigan, so
And it exploded after that.
Yep.
I mean, if you noticed, that's what every day between that point and the end of the year, somebody was reading your NJIT article.
William and Mary at Virginia. William and Mary can move right to the top of our under the radar top 10 list if they can win that game. Yeah, but let's keep going.
Right. I like this Bill and Mary team. I do think that it's possible for them to land near the bubble. They win this game. They won't be near the bubble. They'll be so far inside of it that there's no. But realistically, let's keep going.
A game kind of Saturday night, Evansville at Murray State. That's a pretty interesting battle. A couple teams we've been discussing tonight.
Yeah, Evansville really should win that one. Murray's good, but if Evansville wants to demonstrate that they're good, they need to win that one.
Coming up Sunday evening, another game to keep an eye on. UC Irvine is at St. Mary's. We talked about that St. Mary's team being undefeated. Irvine's still our choice in the Big West there.
Yeah, real good game there.
Another game involving a Big West team that we didn't really discuss earlier. Long Beach State's going to be at UCLA. UCLA may be a little hungover off of the Kentucky victory. Long Beach State has been surprisingly competitive so far this year against their killer schedule.
They really have been. Now, they haven't won any of the games, but they haven't gotten run out of the gym. And last year, we really liked this Long Beach team coming into the year, and much of conference play, they kind of faded out. But we were not expecting them to even be good by Big West standards, but they've looked pretty good. They've been
good.
Much better than I thought they would be.
They picked up a nice road win tonight at Colorado State on top of that. Not a great win, but it's a solid road win, tough place to win.
Yeah.
Kind of Monday night, round 2 of the Battle of the Boulevard. Belmont's at Lipscomb this time.
Yeah. And again, love this series. It's been kind of one-sided recently, but I like that they both embrace it and both keep it going.
Tuesday evening, David, the other Brooklyn battle. LIU Brooklyn's going to be in Fordham.
Yeah, and again, I realize the A-10 not under the radar, but Fordham is so atrocious in recent years. Only one loss, and they're not terrible. I realize that it's. I know why you're highlighting this. Is it possible that Fordham actually has something going? And is Jeff Neubauer the national coach of the year?
If Fordham makes the NCAA tournament, he will be the national coach of the year, I'd venture.
This is astounding. He was good at Eastern Kentucky. I really liked him. I thought it was a huge mistake when he left to take what I thought was just a cesspool of a job. Unbelievable. Wow.
Yeah. Just a few other games here. The Northern Iowa team we discussed is on the road at George Mason. Stony Brook, who we like out of the America East, is at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's been a little disappointing, so would not be surprised to see a close game in that one.
Right.
And Iona is at Tulsa. Tulsa's looked a little vulnerable at home this year already a couple times, so keep an eye out for that.
I'm starting to wonder if that win over Wichita is going to do anything.
And just go quickly into next Wednesday. That Howard team we talked about in the MEAC is at Purdue. That's probably too tall of an order for them.
Yeah, probably so.
Let's see, we got Temple's at Penn, UNLV at Wichita State. I guess that could be a partially under the radar game now as well. Wichita would need that one. Yeah. David, let's run through the top 10 lists here real quick as we're just about out of time. But the under the radar top 10. Number 1 this week, I have the Valparaiso Crusaders, especially coming off of that win tonight.
Yeah, they did drop one at Ball State last week, and God, did that hurt them. But I still think overall they're the best team. I think that was an anomaly. It was a toe stub. It's not indicative of how good they really are. They really should have won that. One more note about Valpo. If we have any Valpo fans watching this, I know I'm preaching to the choir. You need to start filling your arena. You have an NCAA tournament at large, 10 seed caliber team. And again, big game tonight, a good crowd, but it wasn't full. They need to start filling their arena.
Number 2 overall, I have a team that won a game where Kentucky couldn't. The Monmouth Hawks.
And absolutely, their paper is actually better than Valpo's. It's better than a lot of power.
I thought you were going to say it was better than Kentucky's, but
not quite that good. But it's better than a lot of power conference teams. It's excellent.
Number 3, I've got this Evansville team, not as powerful of paper, but I still just think it's a really good team led by DJ Ballantyne there.
Yeah.
And number 4, I have Louisiana Tech, another team that may not quite have the paper, but I think it's played pretty well so far.
Yeah, with the exception of earlier in the week against Memphis. I mean, that was kind of puzzling to see them play so poorly after looking so good.
In 5th place, I have Northeastern, a team that really probably wasn't in my top 10 last week, but I think really to prove that they belong up there with at this point.
And their paper's pretty good. I actually like them a little more than La Tech. I really like this Northeastern team.
Sixth place, I have the South Dakota State team that I really like out of the Summit League still.
Yeah, one toe stub, but still a really good team.
Number 7, you win at Memphis, you win at Ohio State, and you almost beat Texas Arlington, the Mavericks.
Yeah, and they got to be up there. And you wonder, they won big tonight. And again, this was them and Little Rock, but particularly them. We weren't expecting much out of them at all. But I know North Texas is nothing special, but they stomped North Texas the way you would expect a good team to beat North Texas. I think Arlington's pretty good.
Yeah. And you mentioned Little Rock. I have Little Rock right behind them at number 8. I think they were almost interchangeable. Little Rock is undefeated, so maybe they should have been 7th. But I kind of like Arlington's wins a little bit better than Little Rock's at Tulsa and at San Diego State. At number 9, I have Northern Iowa. Coming into the list here, they beat Carolina at home. I don't think I really believe in them quite yet, but they've done nothing to show me that I shouldn't believe in them.
Right, and again, you know, Evansville up there, Northern Iowa up there. The Missouri Valley is going to send at least one inside the bubble, maybe 2, and we're used to seeing 2 from out of that league. So, yeah, pretty good. And like we said, Ben Jacobson doing a hell of a job this year.
Number 10, Team of the People, Grand Canyon. They belong in the top 10 list. They are undefeated.
They are undefeated. And if you said this about William and Mary at Virginia earlier, if Grand Canyon wins at Louisville, they're going to move up a little bit, I think.
I think they're going to move up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have 4 honorable mentions. One team that I know could be strongly argued should have been in my list was that Bill and Mary team you just mentioned.
I like them a lot. They had a nice win, I thought, against I say it's a nice win. I forgot who they played. It was
Old Dominion.
Yeah, Old Dominion, and it was an ugly game, but it was still a notable win. I like this Old Dominion team, or this Bill and Mary team. They did have that shocking loss to Howard. Ooh, but.
And that's why they missed the list this week, and they may get back in there next week, especially if Howard can keep winning games. It may not be that bad of a loss. I also gave honorable mentions to Western Illinois with only the 1 loss so far. Chattanooga, who is a team that we still like a lot out of the SoCon. And with the win tonight at Colorado State, I threw an honorable mention over to Long Beach. Not an impressive overall record, but with the schedule they play, any winning record's an impressive record.
Oh, absolutely.
David, anybody else that you want to throw out there that I missed?
No, this is going to sound a little strange. They're under the radar by under the radar standards. I'd like to give a shout out to the Samford Bulldogs, who not quite as bad as Maryland Eastern Shore, but really, really, really bad the last 3 or 4 years. Just 2 losses on the season, won their exempt tournament down in North Texas. Arguably the best under the radar team in Alabama right now.
Maybe the best team in Alabama right now, or over the radar. But on that note, David, anybody else you want to mention? Any other final thoughts for the evening?
No, just again, like we said at the beginning of the show, get on Twitter. If you haven't done it, do it now. Lopes waiver. Let's make this happen. And again, every week we're going to be doing something utterly ridiculous and utterly stupid to get the NCAA's attention, and we will not give up.
We will not give up, and mad as hell.
I'm not going to take it anymore.
Not going to take it anymore. #Lopes waiver. Tweet it out, everybody. Have a great night.